Hi folks, Rodney back again with Rodney's Northwest Ride and Reviews. I've currently got just under 1,600 miles on my new Tacoma, and I thought it'd be a great time to just kind of get a short-term review. It seems like every time you get a new vehicle, there's always little things that pop up that you weren't quite expecting. So I want to talk about some of the pros and maybe even a couple cons on the vehicle, and so you guys can know in making that decision whether you want to purchase one or not, or just kind of what to expect. So like I said, I've got 1,600 miles on it. I have changed the tires. I'm going to do a tire review here in just a few minutes after I get done with this video. So if you're interested in these BF Goodrich KO3 tires, slide on over there and check out that video as well. And I'll tell you after about 1,300 miles of use on them what I think. Let's talk about performance real quick. So, you know, you've probably seen many reviews and everybody talks about the performance is good on this, even though it's a 4-cylinder turbo. The one thing that I will say that's probably the biggest thing that is different than versus the V6 is the way it actually performs. Because the low-end torque comes in at 1,700 RPMs versus waiting until around 4,000 RPMs on the V6, it makes the driving experience totally different. You know, you can feel when you hit a hill, instead of the old generation where it was always searching to be in the right gear, you'll see that the turbo boost goes up on this, but yet you're not changing the throttle input. Now, it may do it electronically on its own, but what you'll notice is that you're not having to put any extra foot pressure on it for that turbo boost to increase and kind of carry that same momentum. So when you start up a hill, it's not shifting gears like it did on the older version. It's just kind of continuing to keep going forward. Let's talk about the ride for a moment. So when I put the tires on, it did affect the ride a little bit. So these are a 6-ply tire, or I should say a kind of a light duty truck tire. The KO2s that I had on my other truck, so I had them on a 2021 Tacoma, and then I also had them on my 2022 Tundra that I had. And so these are a little lighter duty. Obviously the ride is much better. I did feel a little ride quality difference in the tires that came on them, the trail terrains. But these are a much more heavy duty tire. They're much more durable. They're going to be much better off-roading, you know, not only in mud and dirt, but then also in, you know, snow and ice. So these KO3s, they are snow rated, where the trail terrains, even though that tire normally would come as a snow rated tire, it's not on the tires that we get coming from Toyota. So headlights, I've not had a lot of experience driving at nighttime because of the time change. You know, it's getting, you know, it's daylight longer now. But the nights I have driven, the headlights have no complaints whatsoever. They're very bright. The fog lamps work really well. One thing I will mention, and I'll cover this also in the tire review, is that if you guys put aftermarket tires on it, make sure that they don't, and I'm only saying this from past experience, you can see where the tire is, it seems like it's under the flare here, but where people are really running into issue, you can see the rock chips right here. And what that's coming from is coming from the tires. And so when you look at, now this being a plastic cladding, there is a few scuff marks here, but you can't tell it because it's the cladding. But if you're gonna have painted fender flares like on the SR5, on the Limited, on the TRD Sport, if it's a dark color, those are gonna show, any of those rock chips are gonna show up pretty visible. So even though I have the mud guards on it, you can see where they don't cover all the way out. And even though it feels like, or it looks like it's covered under the fender flare here, it's not here, and it's kicking up rocks. And because of the way that flare and this bed is designed, it picks up a lot more rock chips. So keep that in mind and be prepared for it. A lot of people have talked about this, I'm going to call it corrosion protection, rock protection, whatever you want to call it. But you can see how the paint is just more durable right here. And that's the whole reason they've designed it that way, is to help with that. I wish they had done the same thing here, and that probably would have helped prevent a lot of the rock chips. I have a little motorcycle trailer, so I honestly haven't done anything. I haven't towed anything of any significant weight. but it seems to do really well. The funny thing about the Tacoma with the 4-cylinder is I actually get better fuel economy in town than what I do out on the highway. And I know that when you look at reviews and when they state the mileage on them, it's not supposed to be that way. But maybe it's just the larger tires. Now, obviously, you will lose a little fuel economy with the larger tires. Another thing to mention about that, if you put larger tires on the vehicle, because the tires are larger, you're kind of changing your gearing ratio. So, for instance, at 60 miles an hour with these tires, and these are a 33-inch tire, they are running at 62 miles an hour. At 70 miles an hour, it's running 62.6 miles an hour. So you are traveling a little further distance in the same amount of time. So if you don't recalculate that and adjust your fuel economy, you're actually probably getting a little better fuel economy than what you may think. So for instance, on this one, I'm getting about 0.6 miles per gallon better than what the odometer says. And right now, it says 17.7. So I'm actually 18.3. And that's just my combined fuel economy. That's in town, that's out on the highway, that's towing my motorcycle trailer, up into the mountains and stuff. Obviously, it's not great fuel economy, but it's continually getting better. And the one thing I have noticed is that when it's warmer outside, you get better fuel economy than when it's cold. I noticed the same thing with the Tundra. So, it's funny, you think that, these turbos are air-cooled, or excuse me, they have the air-cooled intake, and you would think that they would like colder weather better, but it's just the opposite. It prefers the warmer weather. So, anyway, bed step. I know a lot of people have kind of complained about the bed step. I actually like the bed step because it makes it easy to get it up and into the truck bed. I put on this tonneau cover, and I really like the tonneau cover. I've never had a sliding or retractable cover before, but it's nice because you can open it up. And you slide it wherever you want it, and you can lock it back in place. And I mentioned this in an earlier video. If you had a tri-folding cover, obviously you're going to be a little bit limited on space towards the front, which you still have the same issue with this. But the difference is you can move it wherever you want it and then secure it. And once you secure both sides, it clamps both sides, so it prevents it from moving. So if you had something in here, like for instance, if I had a bike in here and I needed the handlebars to stick out, but yet still secure it from being able to get it out, you could do that with this and then lock it up. Where the tri-folding, once you fold it over, there's nothing that you can do. I mean, you still leave so much space open and anybody can get anything they want out of it. So anyway, that's the tri-folding cover. So on my 2022 Tundra, it had a locking tailgate, and you have that on the Tacoma as well. The difference is with the Tundra, as long as you have the key fob with you, you can come back here and open the tailgate. On this, the truck actually has to be unlocked. So the doors, all the doors have to be unlocked before you'll be able to open up the tailgate. So that part is different than what the Tundra was. Let's talk about pros. I really like the way the vehicle drives. It is so much more stable on the road than what the previous gen was. The way it handles the road, the way it wants to go down a straight line. And that was a complaint I had with the previous generation Tacoma, is that it always seemed to wander on the highway a little bit. And when I added the larger tires and wheels, or larger tires anyway, it wanted to follow every groove in the road. Well, this doesn't do this. This still wants to go straight, and so there's no complaints whatsoever about the way it actually handles. The pros, performance, much better performance than the previous gen was. The headlights, in the previous gen, you had to get like a premium model or above to get the upgraded headlights, and of course you get these upgraded headlights on all of the models regardless. And then of course the fog lights, you're going to get the same fog lights on an SR5 as what you would with a limited or even a premium model. Now when you go into the TRD Pro and the Trail Hunter, They do have upgraded rigid fog lights, which you do not get in these other models. Let's talk about a few things that I would consider a con. I think that, and granted, these mirrors are not any different than the previous gen was. They're about the same size, and I haven't looked at them side by side to see if they're exactly the same. They still have the blinker on the exterior so people can see beside you when you're putting your turn signal on. But size-wise, I think they could have gone to a little larger mirror, and especially if you were towing anything, it would have made it nice to be able to have a little better visibility. Another pro would be the seating position in the seats. These seats are so much more comfortable than what it was in the previous gen. Your seats, the seat angle and the way your knees go down, it's more of sitting like your knees are at a 90-degree angle. Not quite that much, but it's a lot more so than what it was in the previous gen where your legs were more straight out. And the seat cushion gives you more support now, so you don't have your legs falling asleep like they used to in the other ones. I have mentioned this in other reviews. I haven't spent a lot of time in the back seat, but I have spent about 45 minutes riding back there. And this seat cushion is longer. It kind of creates this illusion that you don't have as much leg room in the back, but it actually is a lot more comfortable, and you still have the same leg room even though that visual effect seems like it's less. Storage space, you know, I've got a bunch of things down here, but I like having the additional storage space there. And then you can take this headrest, fold it down, and fold this down flat. And so you don't have a lot of storage space back here because of the subwoofer when you get the upgraded JBL audio system, but you can always store stuff on top of this, and I'm often folding that down to get additional storage space. The one thing that I will mention is that when you fold these seats down, it's surprising how much more road noise you actually pick up with the seats folded down than when they're upright. And so I know that there's, you know, they probably could put more insulation in there, but when the seats are folded up, you don't notice it. It's only when it's folded down. This seat cushion does come up, and then you got a snap here. You can attach it here to hold it up out of the way for you. I've often thought that it would probably be nice if they put air conditioning vents on the back of the console, but the cab is still fairly small, and this heater and air conditioner works very well. And so I think that's actually an improvement over the previous gen. On a hot day, it cools down pretty quick, and it's amazing how much airflow you actually get out of that. Sunroof, standard sunroof, not really much to talk about there. You do have your button here to open and close the sliding rear window. I wish they had set it up where, like on the Tundra, where the rear window goes all the way down. Now granted, the window's not extremely large, so it's probably not as big a deal, but you do have a sliding rear window back there. My biggest complaint that I think that I have about the truck is based on having the 8-inch screen. So I had a person watch the video and they put in a review or a comment, and his comment was, it looks like your views are kind of leaning more towards the more towards the salesperson side. And folks, I am a salesperson, but I'm not trying to sell you anything. That's the kind of the difference. I'm giving you a review and what I think of the truck. But his comment was based on, you know, how I think that this generation is so much better than the previous gen. And my comment would be, like, if you had a customer come in and you were driving the previous gen and driving this one, and I actually had this situation last week, and he drove it because he thought he saw one that was a previous gen that had a manual transmission, and he thought that he would be interested in that. So he went out and drove it, and he's like, wow, I love this truck. And I said, well, do you still want to drive a new one? And he says, well, okay, I'll drive it just to see if I like it any better. And he came back and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm sold. I'm going to buy the new one. So anyway, there is obviously a lot of improvements just in the ride and the way the vehicle handles. But to go back to what I started to talk about, yes, I am a salesperson. Toyota's not going to go backwards. They're not going to, you know, start building the V6 again. It's going to stay a 4-cylinder turbo, and that's being, you know, that's being pushed by our emissions, by the government standards. It's not Toyota's decision. but definitely they